Welcome to the 40s AF Real Talk series, where we have real discussions about life at 40 plus. Today we have Dr. Darnise Martin, a professor, life coach, and author of 40 Something, 10 Radical Lessons for Women on How to Live and Love Without Losing Themselves. Welcome, Darnise. Yay.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to some juicy conversation.
Yes. Well, when I think back, I always think back about when we met. And we met at a mutual friend's birthday party. And it's funny because I feel like that we connected immediately, especially in regards to being in our 40s and things that were happening at the time in our life.
Right. We were all huddled in a cabana thing, chatting and having a cocktail or two.
So one thing that I did remember is when I saw your Facebook post when you did publish your book, I was like, oh, she kept the title, because I remember there was a guy there being a little bit aggressive about the title, and he didn't agree. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Why didn't you think about changing it? Because it could have easily been 10 Radical Lessons for Women on How to Live and Love Without Losing Themselves versus 40 plus. Can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah,
well, as someone, when I started writing this book, I was still 40 something. Although I'm saying I'm 49 forever. But I just recognized from my own experience and from coaching women over the years that the 40-something decade really is particular. It really is specific in terms of the kind of life resets, the kind of opportunities that show up, the kind of crash and burn kind of situations that happen, and a certain exhaustion, because women have really, in that decade, have really been doing so much up to that point. So if you're 30, you can relate, but you haven't yet had enough of it, because you're still in it. You're still trying. You're still living into those roles and expectations. By 40, 43, 45, you're realizing, wow, this is really not working out for me, right? And if you're 47, you're like, okay, I'm just tired. I'm not doing this anymore. So there's a certain confluence of events that happen, right? There's a whole lot of stuff that's been happening. There's an exhaustion factor, and there's a willingness to say, well, what else? What can I do for me?
That's true. I'm there already.
Right.
So in terms of your aha moment or your transition moment, and what was it that you were like, okay, I'm ready?
Well, there were a couple, certainly. And I will say that for me, it really was about the last thing, or the straw that broke the camel's back, was being in a relationship that just did not serve me. And it wasn't going to. And here's where we have to wake up and really take that bitter pill. If you're in a relationship and you've been hoping that it's going to be a thing and it's not, and you just keep having, experience after experience with that person, and they are revealing to you that they're just not what you want them to be, then you have to say, this isn't going to work out. And for me personally, I was involved with somebody who's really well known, in Hollywood, and I thought, no, I can't leave this. No, I can't leave this, right? Like there's a whole lifestyle that goes with that. Right. And I was really, going through that in my mind, like, oh, who will I be without him? And that whole thing and whatever. And then I literally just had a couple of moments with myself. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can't really breathe in this relationship. I'm starting to feel suffocated. And it wasn't even his fault. I'm not here to throw him under the bus. Right. It wasn't that. It's just that I recognized that what I needed for my life to be happy and fulfilled, I was not going to get in that relationship. And so I had to make the really difficult decision. I got to go. And as I said, it was so difficult, right? But I feel like I had this come to Jesus moment, or whomever, right? The Buddha knocked me on the shoulder and said, you know what? Get up, girl, get out of here. And I was like, huh? And it was just clear as a bell. I was like, it's time. You have to take the risk to be true to yourself, even if you don't know what that is right now. Get up, get out right now.
And it's never overnight. It does take some time, right?
Right. It takes time for us to get ourselves there, because we know. The thing is, we know when the thing is not really working. We know it could be a job, because for me, it was that professionally also some things were happening, and I was somewhat in denial. Right. And then there just comes a point when you can no longer be in denial, where I couldn't. And then I had the confluence of events, like I call it the life reset, because several things go badly at once. in your life.
Right.
And you're like, why is everything happening right now? Well, it's like, what else can I do to get your attention? If I'm your angel, your guardian angel on your shoulder, what else can I do to get your attention but kind of crash and burn all the things that you've been holding on to?
Right.
And if I remove those things and you're not distracted anymore from the clarity of what you already know, because really, you know, this isn't working. You just need the confidence and the courage to keep it moving forward. And so, yeah, I had those moments and I said, well, I didn't feel particularly confident or courageous, but I just took the step because it seemed like I had to. Like there was just no other way not to.
No other way.
So, you know, when I tell women who I'm coaching, I said, you probably already know. Now let's get you to feeling confident and courageous about doing it.
What I wanted to do today is just kind of point out a couple of lessons that resonated with me and just kind of have you speak on them. So one of the chapters that really resonated with me was the being open to growth. I think that for me, it resonated with me because I'm actually in that space right now where I literally had to like, you know, leave my job and decide if I want to be creative, like what I was going to do, which is kind of like what the 40s AF podcast was born out of and so on and so forth. And I wanted to ask you if you could just speak on that in terms of like when people are holding back or they're not really sure, you know, and kind of stepping into that growth, how difficult it can be, maybe some tips or how you serve your clients in terms of getting into that space.
Well, it's a challenge because we all hold on to the things that we're comfortable with and know, even when it's time to let go. Right. And so when women show up for me, I'm like, okay, well, let's get it all out on the table about, you know, we got to go in deep. We're probably going to come to the point where there's tears because you have to tell yourself the truth. So I always say, look, there's truth telling that has to happen. And they think that I mean, well, you know, I'm not a liar. Of course, I'm not here to lie to you. I'm like, no, you're going to tell yourself the truth because you will never step into your opportunities if you don't tell yourself the truth about where you are now.
Right.
Because we can patchwork things together, make them work, make a bad relationship work, make a bad job work, relationships with, you know, family members or whomever, and just patch it together. But when you have opportunities start showing up where things are no longer working 100%, those are all opportunities. What are you going to do? It's about telling yourself the truth. Am I really happy?
Right.
If this, and this were not in place, would I really stay with this person? If I was financially independent, would I stay with this person?
That's a big one, right?
Right. Especially, right? But I suppose it could be anybody who ends up in a financially dependent situation. But, you know, when you start peeling back those layers and then presenting, so what I like to do is present the options or the opportunities that people in it who are going through it in the moment, you don't see it, right? Because you're kind of caught up. Like, oh no, you don't understand my problem because it's this is why. And so I say, you know, I typically share something from my life, you know, like, here, let me just share with you where I've been and how I got through that. But look, this is really for you. Can I just point out that there's an opportunity over here? You didn't think about it. I can see it. Or I say to them, you know, tell me about your life. Tell me about what's knocking on your door that maybe you're not seeing, not hearing. You don't think is valid. You don't think you can really do it. Who called you? And you're like, I don't know why they're calling me for that. I don't want to do that. Like, what are the things that you're already saying no to as you're saying, well, I don't know what else I would do? Do you have that person in your life, let's say an old lover? Well, let me get back in touch with you. Let me get back in touch with you. And you want to go that route as opposed to doing something new.
Right.
Right. Or the new person who you're ignoring because they're not your type. Right. Like what? Because oftentimes we resist our growth because we won't look around and just see what's there. I always say, look up and look around. Look up and look around. Because when you're saying, oh, no, there's no opportunities. No, there's nobody. No, there's nothing. I bet there is. I bet there are. You just don't see it. And I can help you see it.
People don't. They stay where they're comfortable. Like you said, if the ex calls, it's like, I know him, I know what to expect, I know what not to expect.
Right.
So why not? Right. Versus, like you said, this new person, or you're at this job you hate or a career that you hate and you're unhappy in, but it's like, why look for a new opportunity? This is, you know, you kind of resolve yourself, especially 40 plus, because society makes us believe and feel that you have to have it all together by that age, and if you don't, you just you can't do any better. And
exactly. And so you say, well, I settle then. Well, I'm comfortable. I'm halfway comfortable. And you know, even about an ex, I will say, if you're clear on what that would be, go ahead. But if you know that you really want something else, what are you doing back with that person?
Yeah.
I mean, I always say relationships are spiritual work. So you're going to meet yourself, or at least you're going to, people will say, I'm not that person. Yeah, but who do you become when you're with that person? And that could be your lesson. Almost always it is. And sometimes we don't see it, but we know how we normally react. And that lets us know. And if the other person is paying attention, we'll let them know our real wounds, our real vulnerabilities. Because why do you do that? Why do you think what I said meant that? Why do you think I'm going to abandon you? Why do you feel the need to check my phone? Because it's not just the checking of the phone. It's the fact that you don't trust. Why don't you trust?
Right.
And so if you're willing to get clear with yourself, you will stop saying, oh, it's this person, it's everybody else. You'll say, I have a trust issue because when I was young, this is what happened, or in my early relationships, this is what happened, and I'm still carrying that wound. So now when I'm in a relationship, I still behave the same way as if I'm threatened in that same way. And I don't want this person to see how vulnerable I am. So I'll just go straight into anger.
Can you heal that?
You can, but see, you have to own it. Like, yes, the person cheated. Let's say the person cheated or lied, or betrayed you in some way. And so if your focus is completely on that person, you won't heal. You'll go into another relationship and have something similar, or similar betrayal happen. But if you say to yourself, I have some kind of wound here, and it's showing up in that person being dishonest with me. My healing work has to be around that. And I will not attract or stay with people who betray me. As soon as the new person, let's say you've done some healing work on yourself, and you start meeting new people, and those new people start behaving in the same way, you'll go, oh no, I saw this before. I saw this movie.
Right.
I got to move on. Or what normally happens, though, is we go right back into the same thing because we have seen it and it seems somewhat familiar and comfortable, and we get right back into it, and then we reenact the same thing, a repeat performance. But the growth happens when you say to yourself, no matter how beautiful the person is or wealthy or whatever it is, they start exhibiting the same type of things. You get the same kind of internal feeling within yourself. You're like, I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to leave this person. I'm going to tell them, hey, that is straight up not cool with me. And we can't make anybody else change. So I always say, it's not about giving someone an ultimatum. It's about what you're willing to do. You have to be very clear and then follow through. Because if it's a hard no and you really mean no, I know I don't do that. I don't play those kind of games. Then when that person continues, because that's what they know how to do, right? So they're showing you who they are.
Right.
Then you have to be mature enough to say, yeah, this isn't going to work out for me.
What would you say to someone that would say, well, in some aspect, everyone is broken and have their own issues, so you can't walk away from everyone, right?
Right. So you have to know what are your hard no's.
Okay.
Everybody has some baggage. Whose baggage are you willing to help them clean up? Right. Because exactly, especially when you're in your 40s or older, right, that people are going to have their stuff. We all have some wounds. We all have vulnerabilities, and a lot of us are trying to cover up those vulnerabilities, right? Because we've been hurt before. We have seen these movies before. And so we don't really want to just expose ourselves. But you have to be willing to say, well, this person seems well-rounded, a pretty good fit for me. I'm willing to be with this person and help them, and they help me. It's a mutuality. Yeah, I'll carry some of your stuff sometimes. You want to carry some of my stuff sometimes? Yeah.
I like that.
Right. So those are early conversations to be had, not on first 2 or 3 dates where you're like, okay, have you ever been to therapy? Like all that. No, but you kind of get a feel for if the person is compassionate, if they're kind, how do they deal with difficult circumstances that are already going on in their life when you meet them? What's their relationship with their family members? Do they cuss people out all the time? Are they nasty to people? I mean, you can just kind of say, oh, okay. And then your relationship grows, and then you end up asking for more from each other. And, let us just dispel right now, relationships are not 50-50. One person is always carrying more at any one point than the other. But overall, it should balance out. If I'm having to carry 80% because of, 1 month, for whatever reason, it should balance out at some point when he's carrying the 80, and it's a back and forth. So we have longevity.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about identity. That was another chapter that I really loved and resonated with me. And obviously, reading your book, I see that you put a lot on the table in terms of your life and taking inventory. One thing that I noticed is you talked about authentic self and your acceptable self, and being able to balance those two. And I was just wondering, like, how can someone really do that even if you come into who you really are? Sometimes even people, they're so used to who you were, it's hard to even present that. I mean, I've been through that too, where I shifted certain things in my life, and even still, those same people will approach me based on who they remember me to be, I guess, or I don't,
Right, because that's who they are, first of all, and that was the nature of their relationship with you in the past, even if the past was, last week. That is the nature of their relationship with you, and so they're going to automatically go into that play with you. But when you've really grown, you just know I'm not doing that anymore. Because remember I said clarity, courage, and confidence. So getting clear is who is the new self.
Right.
Now, courage and confidence come because you're going to receive pushback, and criticism, from people, even those who may be family members and say they love you and care about you, but now they don't understand what it is you're doing. Oh, you brand new now, what you think, all of that, and that can be really hard to overcome depending on the nature of that relationship. The roles that we already have had in families. And so if you've always been that person, I can just call and say, send me $100, or, whatever it is, you've always been that person. And you can't say no, or if you do, then people are like, you have it, or, that's not no money to you, or whatever it is. But we have to step back and say, yeah, but you know what? I'm just doing something different now. And I have to reprioritize my money, my time, and just how I spend my time in general. And then some people are just never going to get it, because remember, it's your vision, it's not theirs.
Right. So
we can't expect them to catch our vision.
That's true.
And they're going to say, I don't see what you're talking about. You tried this before and it didn't work out. What are you doing? And I mean, we can't expect that they get the vision. We just have to keep holding our own vision and be like, well, therefore, I structure my time as best I can.
I ain't going to give it all away, but I'm going to touch on one more chapter, facing your fears. And the reason why I think that's important, because I think a lot of people, it takes a long time to step outside of their comfort zone due to fear. I was thinking about what you said in your book, where you talk about where you think that you're avoiding the fear, but you actually could be attracting it. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of, did I say that right?
You're attracting the fear. You're attracting the
thing that you're trying to avoid.
Yeah,
that you have fear, right? Okay.
Yeah. It's already fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real, and we will make up stuff. I call it the what if monster. Even when things are going well, we'll say, yeah, but what if? And we'll get ourselves into a tizzy, and then we stunt our own growth because of that. Right? Like, there are just so many, in general, we call it self-sabotage. And there's so many ways that can look. It doesn't have to be where you just, don't show up or whatever. But it can be so many things where the bottom line is you're terrified. And so you start saying no to things. You're shrinking. But what is, when those opportunities open up, it's like the universe is saying, no, you're ready. Look, the door is open.
Right.
I know you don't know what's on the other side of it, but look, there's a little glimmer. Go ahead. And so I use the analogy of the dragon or the puppy dog. If you don't look at the thing, it'll seem like a dragon that's breathing fire down your neck.
Right.
Because a lot of times we're afraid. We're so afraid we won't even look at it. Like, oh, these people call and they want me to show up, but what can I do? And then she's calling you. How can I be? Because we get worried. Are we good enough? That's the underlying fear.
Yeah.
Are we good enough? Even if other people are telling us how great we are. But something comes up, an opportunity comes up, and then we are once again questioning, wow, am I good enough? And so I'm going to shrink. And I won't even look. I won't even answer the phone. I won't return the email. I won't return the text. That's when it's the dragon. Your fear is out of control and it's a dragon. But if you look at it and just, okay, let me see exactly what they want and how I could do it, now it's a puppy dog. if I just take this a little
just
bit at a time,
like step into it a little bit.
Right. Like, let me see what they really want. Because in my mind, I've made up that they want me to like produce a whole movie and have the whole thing edited and finished and done and perfect, ready to hand off to someone. When really it's a meeting. They just want to have a meeting. And maybe it is some of the bigger names in Hollywood or whatever who's going to be there. And you're already talking yourself out of it because you don't think you're good enough.
I think a lot of people do, maybe unconsciously.
Yeah, absolutely.
That, you know.
And that's why they hire a coach, you know,
right.
and or a therapist of some kind, or if they have a best friend, or they have a sister or whomever, somebody, like with my best friend, I call her and I'm like, I need you to talk me down off the roof right now. I need you to talk me down off the roof. And she'll say, what are you doing up there? Aww. Right? And I wrote in the book that she would say to me, you're not even thinking straight. Mm-hmm. And depending on her tone and the volume with which she says that, I know I'm tripping, right? So she'll
snap out of it.
Exactly. It's a snap out of it. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not even thinking straight. The things that you just said to me don't even make sense. You are creating things to be afraid of. Right. Did you call and find out what they even want? No, because I know what they're going to. No, you don't. Okay, so then, you know, in that conversation, she talks me down off the roof. And that's what I end up doing for my clients is empowering them so that when something great comes, they can say yes. Or when something terrible is happening, they can course correct. Otherwise, we feel defeated.
Right.
We feel just completely defeated. I have no choices. I have no power. And I'm here to remind you, yes, you do. Look up and look around.
Look up and look around, y'all. Well, that was just a little tidbit, a little taste of what you need to be getting.
Yes.
So are you 40 plus and feeling lost or alone? Maybe you're an empty nester trying to find your way. Recently divorced? Or looking to reinvent yourself? Well, I recommend you pick up 40-something, 10 radical lessons for women on how to live and love without losing themselves. Or get some support into stepping into your true purpose with Dr. Darnise's life coaching system. Check her out at www.drdarnise.com.